When you start living with the end in mind, everything starts to change. What are people going to say about you? What message is your life going to speak when you're long gone? Because you weren't born by accident. You didn't just happen to be where you're at and happen to watch this video. There is always a reason.
Welcome. I just want to welcome you guys to our Fuse Life podcast, where heaven meets earth through you. And today my guest is an amazing man that I got to meet in New Zealand when he was coming through. And he's doing a lot of things all around the world. I guess the thing that excites me the most is he is all about the fusion of spirit, soul, and body. And I'm really, really excited to dive into the subject and what it really means to step into the fullness of what Jesus already paid for us to have. So Arun, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, man. It's an honor to be here.
I'm so excited to dive deeper into this. For those that don't know you, why don't you just introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah. First off, love what you're doing, Joseph. Honor you tremendously. It was so good to sync up with you and meet in person in New Zealand. So it's a pleasure and honor to be on this podcast, to be doing this with you, man. So guys, my name's Arun Bulchandani. Union Flow, the title of this podcast, is really near and dear to me. It came to me about 13 years ago, and the initial, basically the beginning of the walk, this Christ-centered reality and relational connection. And the first transmission that I received from God was through union with me, everything else will flow. Wow. So that just set the tone for the journey and took me into some wild adventures, some difficulties, loss, joy, all of it. And we know through life and the experience and the journey therein, there's both bliss and there's both pain. And so just traversing those realities within the relational connection we have with God molds us significantly. And so I began to, and still am just scratching the surface, but begin to understand this reality of connection with God even more. Before that, my journey was in wellness, so to speak. I was pre-chiropractic, pre-med. I was pursuing just getting to understand this physiology more deeply. My dad, Dr. Arun Bulchandani, the pioneer in the family, came from studying under a street light in India to practicing medicine in the US. So he regened the Bulchandani line. He redefined what was possible for us. And, just looking to do my part and to add that generational genetic transformation into the equation in my family. With my wife, we recently married just over a year ago, and that's been phenomenal. So my father, my mother, they have a huge role to play in my journey, just through modeling life in a sense, in a different way, but modeling life and longevity and health. And then my sister as well, who opened the door to Jesus in the family. And when she opened the door to me, it just created a domino effect around them. My father, my mother, my brother who is really near and dear to me as well, who's a doctor in the area, Dr. Neil Bulchandani, movement therapist, chiropractor. So there's a background into human potential in a sense. I was always very extreme as a child, always looking to push the limits in some degree, but went through a lot of difficulties as well. And I think that through that whole process, like all of us, we have a lot to contribute and bring to the table and our own unique expression. So that's what I'm doing now. So I have a background in wellness. I'm an instructor with a specific method called the Wim Hof Method. Some of you may be completely new to that individual or that method, but I trained personally with him, a guy who attained 26 world records in the area of just how to optimize the mind and the body. I trained with individuals that are near and dear to us, like Kirby Delanerol and Fiona of Wildlife in Sri Lanka. I appreciate them so much. Individuals like Ian Clayton in the area of spirituality, Christ-centered, it's relational connection, walking and moving and grooving in the kingdom, and so on and so forth, just bringing transformation from what we consider to be our seated position in Christ, and just practical fruit and manifestation, first in Jerusalem in our lives, and then to the ends of the earth, just around our lives, right? So there's so many people I can name. There's so many people who have really molded me in a sense, God being chief amongst them, and then his teachers, individuals who carry his expression. And, again, I think at the end of the day, that really levels the playing field for all of us, demolishes the negative aspects of ego and pride, helps us all be humble, because the only reason we're here today doing what we do, listening in now or whatever, is because of those who have gotten us to where we're at today. So I'm a lifelong learner, a lifelong contributor. I'm all about pushing the limits of deep, intimate connection with God, so to speak, and potential. How do we unlock? Well, a better term is not unlocking, because it's already been unlocked, it's already been finished. But how do we unleash with this divine nature? And that's the journey that I know we're all on in our own respective fields or expressions. So that's a little bit of an intro.
Man, I love that. I love the fact that you use the word expression, because that's big for me, a unique expression of the same God and the same Trinity. And I also love that you use the word train, because I think in a lot of people lose that. Like, they don't understand there is a training involved, and so I really love that. Can you explain a little bit, because you go around, you do workshops, maybe a little bit about what kind of workshops you do and what the focus is? Yeah,
I do a number of different things. A few of them, one of them specifically, I would say I'll stick to this one for right now, is Triune Recalibration. And so in simple terms, it's, a recalibration unto union, unto what some would say first love connection, and transcendence. So spirit, soul, and body, how do we bring all systems into the equation? How do we take this from a mental ascent of information to body mechanics and movement within our spirituality? That's the missing link, I believe. I believe the greatest, in a sense, transformation that is really coming is the transformation of us. When all systems are go and operational, I think we'll see a completely different worldview shape. So transformation, mind-body optimization, that's what I'm looking to do. And I do it in the most practical of ways by taking things that we all do in our everyday life, day to day, and help shift them into the energy of Elohim, the reality of our relationship with God. And just for anyone could benefit, just an overall wellness and just thinking differently. Oftentimes we need to think differently, but not just think differently. We're missing the movement. And as our body moves, our brain grooves. That's a quote from a guy named Jim Quick I really respect. But our body sets the mind. I think that's something that we need to grasp. We've been in a lot, and as a man thinketh in his heart, and so he is. And that's true, and that's very paramount. Awareness is key. I think awareness is the step. And then we began to think differently, the transformation of the mind. But if we can move with information, do and teach, so to speak, if we can begin to move with information, we'll see that it locks down in a more significant fashion and manner, neurologically speaking. And so that is the workshop a lot. And so we take different modalities that I've stepped into some level of mastery in or authority within. That's really important, that we embody that which we teach. I try not to teach anything that I haven't went to the edge and back again for the most part. And just because I think that's really important, because there's a lot of trends, but we can move with trends or we can actually embody them. And I always say that your training actually begins when you become conscious of what you're doing. I love what Taylor mentioned. I tuned in about 30 minutes of Taylor Remington and you talking. And meditation is a big part of my life. It's a big part of union, a big part of the flow of that union. And he mentioned something that's really integral. Anything that we begin to put conscious attention and awareness to is a meditation. And so that really simplifies things and really brings it. So we do a lot of meditation and kinesiology and movement of the body in different ways, whether it be through modulating breath, whether it be through shifting the way we approach things like food and things like sleep, so that we can optimize these things we do every day, uncovering realities in the scripture that can issue forth longevity in the body, that can change our state. This is all part of the Triune Recalibration. So whereas teachers, which I do speak session-oriented, like seminar-based or conference-based ways. And when I first came on the scene, so to speak, publicly, I thought, wow, we have such incredible speakers. We have such incredible teachers and conference-like settings and intensives that I love. I'm a lifelong learner, so I'll always be in those settings to some degree. And I go, well, where can I add value? And the way I knew that I could add value was through practicum-based workshops where there's massive participation and there's movement with all parties. It's not passive learning, which is still good. It's active learning. So I try to figure out what can I add and bring to the table that helps people grow in a different way. And so that's the Triune Recalibration workshop. That started from just a desire for a deep relationship connection. Actually started as well from a War of the Worlds. That's what I quote it as, in terms of just desiring clarity, desiring understanding, desiring a depth of connection that can only be found, I would say the purest realm of knowledge and clarity comes through the creator of all knowledge and clarity, the creator of all, Yahweh. So where can I get the deepest, unadulterated, purified content? Well, it's through my relational connection with God. And so being one who's traversed massive amounts of knowledge, studying all things from the ancient world, studying all types of alternative thought and spirituality, I came to find out that there's a vast difference between consciousness, knowledge, and friendship, and that Jesus wants friendship. And so friendship is it. And that created a recalibration to first love in all systems, where I began to also live in some ways from the energy of Elohim, where my body began to uptake the Spirit of God within it and utilize God, this relational friendship, as also nutrients and as fuel. And so where I went without, not really conscious of it at first, but went without sleep, went without food, because I was so satisfied, I was so nourished by my relationship with God. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to bring that to others, that which I was doing in my own life and hiddenness began to be something that I would do publicly, that other individuals, mentors of mine and friends said, you need to do this. You need to bring this to individuals. It's people such as Kirby, people such as Ian, Dan McCullum, who's another mentor and friend. There's so many, again, that have gotten me to where I am, right? So, and then there's that individual expression component, things that received just through direct revelation from Adonai, from Jesus Christ, right? And then things that, again, that come through learning, my path before coming to Christ, all those things beginning to work together for my good, because of this love for God, because of being called and chosen according to his purpose. So yeah, man, that's Triune Recalibration. And then there's also the Wim Hof Method workshops. I teach and instruct people in modulating breath to upregulate all systems within their mind and the body. And also cold exposure, cold therapy, done heat therapy. I've done a lot more than I can that I give room to share, but there's incredible mechanisms within this divine nature that God molded, created, fashioned. We are created in the very image of Christ. So and we want to maximize those faculties, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is deep, and there's a lot of different aspects, like you're saying. But if I was to ask you, just before we go deeper, in everything that you're doing, if you could summarize that in one sentence for me, what would you say is your main thing?
Union. Okay. Union flow, what does that mean? Union flow is a state of being derived out of our fusion with the creator of all. It's a state of consciousness, a state of being, a state of embodiment that comes from a place of fusion, right? Place of deep union, deep embodiment of this connection with God. And I speak about how the flow of this relationship produces divine intelligence and an ability to connect with and transcend the natural order. So that is a little bit of a breakdown as to union flow, and what does it look like. So yeah.
That's awesome. So all of these different things that you're involved in bring you back into the ultimate desire, which is the union and flowing in that union, right? So
Yeah.
I like to give our guests, our audience, a little bit of a background on the guest story, especially any kind of transformational moment, like when this really happened for you. So can we go back in time a little bit and just share a little bit about, you don't have to go deep, but just on how you came to God and how you came to Christ and what happened for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Seeing some familiar faces on the live. So, hey, everyone. I'm so glad you're tuning in. Share, comment, whatever, interact with us. And know that as you're watching, guys, there's transference. I always love to say that the words that we're speaking, the words that are being shared, they carry life. And so open your heart, open your mind, open your body if there's any places in it that feel that need to be tuned, so to speak, tuned by the energetics of Elohim, by the Spirit of God, and just receive. Receive, yeah. And we receive from you. We're all leaders here. So whether you realize it or not, you're a champion. So in terms of where this began for me, I guess I'll take it back to, that initial transmission of through union with me, everything else will flow. How did that happen? And how did that get opened up in my life? Okay, so before all of that, I was in college and pursuing, just health and understanding of the body. And I was also part of a fraternal order. So just a fraternity, a professional fraternity. I wasn't much of a partier, so to speak, but I was just really interested in delving more deeply with individuals who in the field per se of chiropractic that were doing their thing and really seeing change. And that was a way to get involved. Now in that it's interesting. You make different oaths and dedications and you take vows. Okay. And so we know that our words create worlds. We can, words, we can either speak life or death. Okay. And we reap the result of that. Okay. That's why it's so important that we speak life, especially in the global times we're in, that we really partner with life so that we can reap its benefits and then also shift people's states. Okay. So when I was in this fraternity, I made different vows. Now my sister on the other side of the U.S. in Florida, she was the first in the family to come to know, to be born from above. And so she was there, she was doing her work and then her studies, and she was at a ministry school as well. And she was learning about deliverance. And she was taking this class, and God prompted her after it was finished to take it a second time. She didn't understand why, but she just listened. The second time she took it, they talked about the interconnection of Freemasonry and fraternal orders, believe it or not. So she knew that, whoa, my brother, this can apply to him. Maybe this can be a way to reach and connect with him on this stuff. Because I just thought she was weird. I thought Christianity or spirituality within that vein was just a crutch. It was just something that weak individuals utilize to get them through life. Okay, that's what I thought of it. Because there was no power. I didn't see any power. And besides a few moments, when I was in private school growing up, I was in a Catholic school, which I have a lot of respect for the Catholic Church. The righteous aspects, obviously, of Christian mysticism. We see a lot of the mystics of old in the Catholic order really walking with deep intimacy with Christ and union with God. And when I heard through union with me, everything else flows, I was directed into the studies of individuals like Madame Guyon, Brother Lawrence, so many individuals, and some that come from that space and some who don't. But when this happened, my sister, what she was going after. And then through, when I was in private school, like I said, I experienced the awe of God a few times as a kid, during hymns and different powerful times of like song and chant, so to speak, in the Catholic Church. So there was a few moments I remember, but for the most part, I just didn't see anything. And I was taught Sunday school type stuff sometimes, right? So anyways, fast forward, I'm in school. I take a break before I start the doctorate program, which I didn't end up finishing. I ended up going a different direction, and I'll go into that. But my sister and I ended up being in the same space back in Illinois, where I grew up, helping my parents move. And my sister presented me with just some thoughts and asking me some questions about what I was involved in, what I was up to. And she goes, "Hey, like that fraternity you're part of, you want to know more about it?" And she asked me questions, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? How do you know anything about it?" And she goes, "Well, I've been studying. Let me show you." And then she pulled open this book, this like binder full of notes. And then she had me read some of this information. I go, "Wow, look, that looks familiar." And it said demonic associations with these oaths. And I read right there one of them that I took. And as soon as I read it, I blacked out. So I lost consciousness. I came back to maybe within seconds. I couldn't feel my legs, and then I'm like, "What's going on?" And then I shut down again, came back to. She said, "Can I pray for you?" I go, "What are you?" I go, like, "No," and kind of manifesting, like, what's going on? And then I shut down again, came back to. This happens really quickly.
Yeah.
And then she goes, "Can I pray for you?" And I go, "Yes, please." She put her hands on me and she prayed a blessing in another language. At the time, I was like, I guess she speaks more than one language, which I later found out was what we consider the spiritual language. And I lost consciousness, came back to, and when I came back to, it was like the first breath of fresh air I ever breathed. I can remember breathing for a while. I saw the walls moving. I saw things shifting around me. The world was different. The trees were glowing. Things were different. And I knew that there was this war intuitively by the Spirit. I could see it. There was this war over my soul between light and darkness. And so I turned to my sister. I go, "I need this light. Can I come where you're at and experience it more?" And she was so awesome. She let me kind of go on my own journey here. And later I would find myself in Florida where she was at 3 weeks later. And I would be, she positioned me in the back row but between two of her guy friends in this church she was going to. She brought me to, which I didn't really want to be at. I was super offended. And I was like, okay, like whatever, I'll be here. I knew what I experienced. I didn't think it connected with that which I was going to experience there. But lo and behold, I began to hear this voice saying, "You need to talk to him. You need to talk to him," referring to this guy in the front speaking. And I go, "Heck no. And why am I talking to myself? What's going on?" So I start making a line. I started walking towards the back door. I got out, started walking towards the back door, and I hear, "Young man, I have a word from God for you." It's gospel preacher. Everyone turns towards me. I go, crap. I got called out. This is what I came here for, so might as well just see what's going on. So I started walking towards the front, started to tremble, didn't understand why. I started to experience this power, and I didn't understand. I fell to my knees as this guy began to just say things about my life that nobody knew. My sister didn't know. There's no way he could have known about these things, called out the gold in me. And I go, "God, you are real." We see in Corinthians, an unbeliever walks in, they're prophesying, he falls to their knees and declares there's a God. So that was kind of an exact representation of what I experienced there. Right away, there was a change and transformation. On the drive back, I go, "I want to get baptized. I want to experience this full out." I was like a changed nature, so to speak. The next day, I was baptized in the ocean. That evening, I fell asleep. Before being baptized, I woke up into an ungodly trance where, my life was being threatened by the dark side, in which I laugh out quite frequently now. Again, there was that war over my being between light and darkness. And so, So I got baptized in the ocean of Florida and Sarasota, and that started a journey that took me all around the world on a quest to understand this God, and again, this divine nature, the spirit, soul, and body, and more, the kingdom, and and so on. So yeah, that's a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's amazing. And so you talk about this quest. So you begin this quest. Can you share with us maybe one part of that journey? Like, how did you end up even finding or connecting with Ian, or
Sure.
some part like that? Yeah.
Yeah, man. There's such a wild story with all of this. Initially, after that experience, I heard in an encounter through meditation. Meditation was something that I just found intuitively. It was just the way I was directed as a result of coming to know God. It wasn't anything I initially studied. It was just a byproduct. And again, that definition that Taylor Remington brought, anything that you apply conscious awareness and attention to is a form of meditation. So I just began to entertain and entangle with the Spirit of God. Okay, that was what I knew what to do. I just knew how to set my mind on things above, on things within. Okay, so God taught me very quickly that it was not waiting on God, but waiting with Him. The waiting on God is a whole different thing that talks about a confluence of brainwave states and stepping into spaces and a nexus of time and space to connect with God in a different way. And in terms of meditation, like that was where I was led initially. That led to me hearing in an encounter, what we call an encounter, that about a place called Bethel in Redding, California, which I heard in the spirit and Googled.
Wow.
And when I Googled that information, I found a place in Redding, California. The Spirit of God really confirmed it. And I said, listen, I can't go to church 28 hours away by car. I can't do that. And my parents wouldn't even allow that, for one. Then I saw that there was a school. And being from an Asian family, there's something about school that connects really well with the parents and with the culture.
Yeah.
And I immediately felt a deep connection with that. And I go, this is what I need to do. I applied, got a call very quickly. You need to come. And ended up just a little bit of a journey there with my family on that. But I left. I went and pursued the things of God here in Redding, California, where I actually live right now, at a place called Bethel School of Ministry, with individuals that are very, very influential and awesome, such as Bill Johnson, Chris Valton, so on and so forth. There's so many individuals, like I said. And that took me through that process. I just craved a deeper depths of intimate experiential knowledge of God, relational connection with God. And quite bored at one point, and a rebel and a renegade. All right, this is my early days, guys. I've grown a little bit, matured a little bit, still in the journey. But I just was bored. And I was like, come on, there has to be more here, that we have to go deeper. And that I would do these prayer sessions that were like very long at my place. This is early 20s. And that led me to just experience more things. Okay. So like, again, a lot of these things that we consider mystical, I believe are just a natural byproduct of union with God. I don't want to, I'm considered a mystic. I call myself a mystic. That's more to get a response out of people. I think everyone's a mystic because everyone is multidimensional by nature. So, and I believe an aspect of abundant life that Jesus Christ has brought was just that mystical aspect. It's not a quadrant. It's not optional. It's part of your nature. So out-of-body experiences, altered states of consciousness within my relationship with God, dreams, visions, so many more, telepathy, transrelocation, stuff like that was a byproduct of just deep connection, deep meditation. And so within that, again, just getting to know like there's more. Yeah, there's more. There's this whole like reality within the kingdom, so to speak, within this citizenship in heaven that needs exploration, that needs to be understood. There's this whole other reality within the fact that we're the temple of the Holy Spirit, the body, that needs to be understood more. And so that started me on a journey, a crazy story. And I have mad respect for my rabbi, spiritual father, Ian Clayton, is that I was just in class one day and somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, we're going to go see this guy in Bakersfield. You need to come with us. He's like you. Okay. And I go, yes, let's go. Like, I need to go. I need to cut class. I need to go. I need to drive down to Bakersfield, like 7-hour drive. And let's do this thing. So we were in Bakersfield. Okay. Made the road trip. I stepped into this conference that was going on, sat in the back. As soon as this guy opened his mouth, 10 minutes in, I was at the edge of my seat. It's like somebody's talking about this stuff that I'm experiencing, but not only that, has decades of competence and understanding and awareness in these fields. Holy crap, like I need to get to know this guy. And so I remember grabbing a few teachings. I think it was like a CD at the time. I forget what it was. Anyways, I grabbed some teachings, yeah. And I uploaded them on I think it was an iPod. I don't know. Back then, it was some kind of thing. I think it was one of those MP3 players, right? I uploaded them on there, and I was on my way to Tibet. Okay, on my way to China 3 weeks later.
Hey guys, I just want to take a quick minute to tell you about our Royal Hybrids group coaching program. Over a year ago, the Lord started speaking to me about a group of people, a tribe that would only get their value, their affirmation, that would only get their identity from who they are in God and nothing else. And from that place, they were going to do great things on the earth. In the last year, we have seen a whole bunch of people jump into our program, solidify themselves in their identity with God, and from that place, actually start to engage their purpose. Fuse Life talks about the 6 trees: your spirit, your soul, your body, and then your relationships, your finances, and your purpose. We have seen a whole bunch of people come through this, get solidified in who they are, and then begin their own projects, whether it's a teen mums project, whether it's a coaching, counseling business, or a painting business, publishing your children's book, publishing a puzzle book. We have seen people do all of these kind of things, and we just know that this is just the beginning. So you want to go to www.fusebornformore.com/Royal Hybrids, or just click the link in the caption and make sure to check out what we are doing. We would love to have you as part of our tribe. Now, back to the podcast.
That was another dream of my heart, to go to the Himalayas. A guy named Sadhu Sundar Singh, mystic of old, was a very big inspiration, still is to me to this day. And so I knew, I was like, I need to get to the Himalayas. And I've been there a number of times now, or a few times. So I was on my way there. And I kid you not, on a layover in Hong Kong, we were going to basically going to different terminals. Okay, rewind. I'm on the airplane right before we're about to land in Hong Kong, and I'm listening to this guy, and I'm kind of in and out of sleep. And we know that space. That's a space I've learned to capitalize on and teach people how to capitalize on with sleep optimization and training I do. Is to capitalize on those in-between states, to connect with God in a deeper fashion, to get to know yourself a little bit more, having your senses trained to discern between that which is functional and non-functional. So in that space, I heard, you're called to this for your generations, and as a sign, you'll see him very soon. Okay? Now I'm called to this in a very different way, in my own expression, as we all have our own unique expression to bring to the table. Again, that's a huge thing for you guys. Don't be a copy. You imitate those who imitate God to pop open into your own individual expression. That's why. And you honor them, and then you pop in and you to your expression, and that's what you offer to the body, and that's where you really get to really contribute massive value. Okay, so that happened, and I got off the plane, and I'm in Hong Kong airport, and I feel this force walk next to me, and how I was trained back then was, that kind of represents something for a word of knowledge, for healing, for moving in the prophetic, okay, all of that stuff. So I just turned and I was going to do that, right? I was going to go figure out, target this individual. Sounds bad. I was going to go hone in on this individual and release the love of God, so to speak, right? And I look at a distance as I'm walking towards, and I'm like, that guy looks really familiar. Wait, that's Ian. And so I go, Ian, and he turned around with a smile on his face. And I was just floored, man. Like, given what I just heard on the plane, given we're one of the largest airports in the world, and we happen to be connecting on the flight around the same time. He's going where he's going. I'm going where I'm going. I walk up to him and I just say, listen, man, this is wild. He goes, I knew I was going to see you. I go, we didn't even meet in Bakersfield. So that was even more wild. And I go, listen, is there any way I can learn from you? I'm at a place right now where the school I'm in is talking about internships, so on and so forth. What you're doing really captivates just who I am and what I'm experiencing. And that would start a journey that was really wild. And we didn't really connect deeply. Then we ended up connecting deeply later on in the journey after I had went through tremendous pain, difficulty, sorrow, joy, adventure, all of it. And I think that's really important. I think I watch a lot of people and I mentor people too. And I watch a lot of people and I'm always looking for that space. Not everyone has to experience that space. Don't get me wrong. We're creating a new genealogy for future generations where there's a completely different dynamic for the new era that's going to happen, I believe. Yet there is something to say about moving through, hitting rock bottom and finding God in a deeper, more comprehensive way in that space. And that causes you to be able to step into a deeper space of contribution, of being able to have compassion, empathy, and love, and a place where you can just understand people. Not that you always understand what the unique person goes through, but you can have a level of understanding and walk with people into transformation. So anyways, I needed to go in that process of my own. And that's a little bit more about this. So my journey now is a lot about, every day, my life, the things I teach are part of my lifestyle. So whether it be through optimizing states of encounter with charismatic terminology, we go through life in altered states of consciousness. That's just how we move through waking to sleeping and then in sleep. So people maybe not understand that term that way, but you move through different brainwave oscillations throughout the day. And one thing that I love, I've been sharing this a lot lately, because some people can get, very complex about things, which I do. And I love it. I love getting complex, but I also love being extremely simple. And we see simplicity demonstrated in children. And they live in a state, most of them live in a state of play. They live in a state of awe and wonder and curiosity. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge life lesson, because most of us in the adult world are trying to get into states of being that we had as a child. And we see that Jesus Christ himself said, you cannot enter into the kingdom unless you be like a child. Mm-hmm. And one of the layers that I've discovered in that long ago was that you cannot enter into the kingdom unless you're in theta, like a child. So a child spends a majority of their time in a different brainwave state that we're looking to achieve as adults in the form of meditation, in the form of mindfulness, in the form of deep connection with God in prayer and worship, whatever it may be, whatever your forte is. That's a place that we're looking to etch out and discover, but that's a place that we lived in. And that's where the imagination was very much alive and resonant. That was where things that we're looking to recapture. Now, that was where a lot of a gambit of experiences happen to most individuals within their childhood that are looking to recapture that now. Okay. Yeah. Again, so many people can attest to this. I can attest to this in both a negative way and a positive way through childhood. And so we want to get back into a place of awe, a place of wonder. So I looked at figure out how to stimulate those spaces within our physiology, within our neurology, and to get into that space where there's a flow, a state of flow, which is part of the research I'm in now too, is really how to access these states of consciousness and these states of being to live the life that we want to live in an optimized state, to not dip all the time, but to live more coherent and connected and transcendent. Okay, so yeah.
Wow. I know we shift topics a little bit there, but that's amazing, your encounter of how you connected with Ian, and then also what you just said. Yeah. I know we've already gone 45 minutes, so it's going really quick, and there's so much I want to talk about. Maybe can we spend like, say, 2 or 3 minutes? Because you talked about something that I don't think many people do talk about, and the importance of it in terms of pain or rock bottom, as you said it.
Yep.
4 years ago, I went through a version of that for me, and that ended up becoming the very catalyst that God then used to launch me into something I never even knew was about to happen.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that just a few minutes on that, on the importance of understanding pain or suffering, or however you're going to define that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Jesus endured the suffering for the joy set before him. And I always say that and equate that to moments like these, where he peered through time and space to see individuals just connecting with one another like this, whether it be digitally, whether it be in person, all that stuff. We endure the suffering for the joy that's set before us, which is transformation. We see that all the individuals within the scriptures that are so near and dear to us, we see that they all move through tremendous adversity in order to just walk the way that they walked. To say, imitate me as I imitate God, to lead the way. We see that we see that in Hebrews. We see that in the champions of the faith, so to speak. Like, they endured such difficulty, and they transcended it. They learned how to take stress, agitation, difficulty, and transmute it onto personal growth and development within their relationship with God, and therefore did change the world. Suffering is difficult, and it's extremely advantageous. Again, to quote Ian, he had always said, with some of the pain that he went through in his body, he always said that this is a platform of engagement with God, with Yod He Vav He. Wow. All this pain is simply another space where I can deepen my relational connection with God. And that's huge. For me, in my process of immunity, my immune system was very compromised. It caused me to go from being able to climb mountains to barely be able to walk to the mailbox in what seemed like overnight. I lost all the hair on my body. And that at that time was very difficult because I went through a complete shift in appearance. I went through a complete change in energy levels. I lost the position in the company I was top in the nation at, redefining metrics. I was, I had to take a medical leave. I lost a relationship that I thought was going to go to marriage, which I'm so grateful it didn't, because I met the woman of my dreams, who I'm married to. That's another reason why I'm so strong now, is because of my marriage. And then because love is obviously the most potent healing hormone. And we can go on that note. But so going through that time, and there's multiple other things that happen simultaneously during that time that cause a real deep war in the mind and in the body. But it was through that place of tears, through that place of getting diagnosis that wasn't good, considering being on clinical trials at Stanford for just different drugs to get my state better, that I shifted that whole thing. I go, you know what? God can change this. And I have the power. Not just God can change this. That's more of where, like, we think about this charismatic Christianity, you can get a miracle. I'm talking about God has given me the power to transform this life, to shift this state, because I'm created in his image and his likeness. So I want to do this. I want to actually co-labor with God. I don't just want to be transformed. I want to be with him in this transformational grace and actually wield this process with him. And that's become something that I've really delved into now, that I teach on and activate. And the process I'm on now, as like, I want to work with God. I want to walk with God, right? Side by side. I want to move with him and co-labor and be a co-heir. So that started this process of immunity where I began to, through tears and through joy at times, began to reconfigure this state, this body. I began to speak to it through body language, through body awareness. I began to understand the dynamics more deeply of the spiritual language, of how it could be cultivated, obviously, to build up your physiology in your most holy faith. And then just learning the simplicity of the foundation that Jesus Christ had set, which is love God with all of your heart, strength, and mind. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And as I began to take that often missed component of learning to love myself, not just conditionally, but unconditionally according to Christ, according to how he loves us. If I begin to wield that same power towards me, no matter what, no matter how much memory I lost, how much my brain was affected, no matter how much my body changed, can I love myself unconditionally, love the imperfections, love what's going on, love everything? And can I begin to speak to my physiology, speak to the water in my body, speak to all this stuff and shift it? And I had really good friends and people in my corner as well, but there was a cave season within that. But again, it amounted to a great cloud of witnesses, meaning also a great circle of trust, friendships, connections, mentors, mentees. It began to change my physiology, and I began to talk about recalibration unto first love. Recalibration of all systems. How do we live not just from the sustenance we get here in the natural, but how do we live from that supernatural space that people talk about? It's a good word that people can relate to. How do we live in that space and recalibrate our systems accordingly? So that's really what culminated in what I do today, man. That marked my life, hitting rock bottom. I remember the day where I was crying and just bliss and ecstasy as I thanked God for the pain, as I thanked God for the turmoil that got me into this space. Not that he caused it, but man, all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. I began to realize that. It began not to be cliche, but it began to be real. And that he makes all things work together, that he perfects all things that concerneth our life, if we choose to open up that space for transformation unto him and really believe that and really begin to move with that. So that's a little bit of my process of immunity. And again, that also converted to me doing things that doctors said I couldn't do, to changing my body in ways that they said I couldn't change it. And that's also another course I'm heading towards, is more experimentation in that space. So, yeah.
Wow. And there's so much we can go into there. Why do you think, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this question, but why do you think it's so important that, like, I love that you say immunity is a process, right? You say it's not a one-time thing, it's a process. And why do you think it's like that, and not just, I prayed, I got a miracle, I had supernatural immunity now, but a building? And it sounds like there is a maturing that has to take place, even in immunity. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. I love it. I'm consistently at a place of rest, despite people thinking that I'm doing things that are very active. It's because I understood a different mystery within this relationship with God, right? So we know that Jesus, per se, to all you individuals who are watching, I think the majority of our audience is individuals who are Christian or believers of the way. Some might be tuning in from my other spaces. But we know that, Jesus, he redefined what was possible. Okay. Not only that as a priest, I was ordained by Kirby and Fiona in the Apostolic Diocese of Ceylon. Somebody asked what that was. I was ordained in that space mainly because of honor. I just honor them to bits. And also because, what I'm doing is a lot of contribution into the body and into the body of Christ within the body. And so within that, I want to say that Jesus Christ did finish it, and he unlocked it all. And so the whole reality is augmentation of awareness, of understanding our access, and beginning to transmute the rivers of living water that flow forth from Christ in and through all of our lives. And so we see in, say, the scriptures that there's a transformation of the mind that's taking place. And we see that's happening by the power of the Spirit. We see in the scriptures that there is a quickening of the body taking place in Romans by the Spirit of God. And we see it's a transformation process and a quickening process. Okay. And some people in the grace space all come against me. And I'm cool with that. You do you, I'll do me, and we'll see what happens. And I think that grace is transformational. You cannot overstate it. You know, we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what's possible within what Jesus has accomplished. And I believe it's highly, it's transformational in the terms that we can work with him. And I think that's always been my process. I want to understand the mechanics, but not only that, I want to stand in this counsel. I want to see and perceive, hear and understand his word. And that comes through friendship. And I believe that comes through being a co-heir. And that comes through a process. There's a place of observation. And again, taking some notes from Ian, he gave some really good language of this. We can begin to observe, and I'm moving it into maybe this space that we're talking about. We can observe the ways or the workings of God, and then we can begin to participate with the ways and the workings of God, and we can begin to move in them. And so I think that as we mature, we see that Paul himself talked about the fact that not having yet attained that which I long for, with one determined focus, I pursue the resurrection. He goes, not having yet attained it. And he goes, not on my own strength, but there's a tension there. He worked with the transformational grace allotted to him. Oh my gosh, if somebody exerted himself, it was Paul. But he learned to trade his strength for God's strength. He learned to trade his weakness for God's strength. And he began to transmute that and shift that. And he goes, for all who are mature, let them have this same mindset. If not, God will reveal it to them. Read Philippians 2, 3, 4, 2 and 3. You'll get that kind of dynamic from Paul. And he talks later, or actually earlier, because Philippians is later. He talks earlier in terms of chronology about the process of sonship. And he talks about the elementary things, which to me to this day they're still always supposed to be awe and wondrous things. They're not meant to be diminished.
That's right.
They're meant to be honored with awe and wonder. And that needs to always be there. And then he talks about how he leaves the hidden things, the hidden wisdom for the mature. And I believe that part of this process of transformation of the mind and the body is an apprehension and attainment of that which is hidden, of that which, the mysteries and the secrets of Elohim that he loves to reserve for his friends. Okay. And if anyone's tuning in from a different vantage point in spirituality and a different vantage point in this world, we know that a transformation of the mind, it transforms the body. And we know vice versa. And as you transform your mind and as your body is being transformed, we step into deeper states of embodiment, of health, of wellness, of optimization, to where we then begin to partake of like mysteries and secrets of longevity, of just ability to contribute massive value to the people around us, so on and so forth. So yeah, man, it's a little bit.
This is this is so deep, and I love every bit of it. We are coming into the 1 hour mark, so I'm conscious and I want to honor your time.
Yeah.
Maybe I know there's probably another episode that we should do so we can go deeper into the mechanics of some things.
Yeah, sure.
I'd love to quickly touch on a couple of things that you talk about, which is the breath work and the cold exposure.
Oh, yeah.
And just in terms of relating that to how it helps you step into the fullness. If you can touch on those two things just a little bit, that would be awesome.
Sure. Yeah, before this call, I was doing cold thermogenesis. I was in there about 10 minutes, and just really, it helps me. I say the deepest spaces of meditation I access in cold therapy, almost. Okay.
So where were you?
Rule. Yeah.
Like, were you in a river? Were you in an ice bath?
Yeah, I was in a river this time.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, guys, 10 minutes is not the mark. It's more for when you begin to get more sensitive to your mind and body and how they connect. Okay. So I've done this for years. I've trained with the best in the world, all of that. A 30-second cold shower, 1 minute cold shower, 90-second cold shower will give you all the benefits you need, help challenge your mind, develop deeper resilience, help strengthen your immunity, which is super imperative right now, as we know. I wish more people were teaching about this in the mainstream in terms of on the media. There's a lot of people teaching about this, some who I was trained by, and but the national and the global media needs to bring some immunity into the equation and not just try and steer consciousness in fear. So things that I do in my life, man, again, I think we'll reserve most of that for a second podcast. But some of the things I'm doing in terms of breath work and cold exposure and so much more are just paramount. I believe that our life is not measured by our years, but by our breath. So age is not measured by years, typically what most people measure it by our loops around the sun, so to speak, but it's measured by the quality and the integrity of our breath. Okay. Wow. And that's actually I'm paraphrasing a quote, but then I take it a little bit more. And I say, it's not just measured by our breath, but it's measured by our beholding. Okay. So what is our beholding? It's our union. And then furthermore, it's measured by the fact that we're being held together by the power of his word. So the greatest way I've learned to access these spaces was through the modulation and augmentation of breath. And for everyone in here that needs some insight, you look at the law of first mention, and we see biblically speaking that God animated and created life into Adam, making him a living soul through breath. And we see that Jesus Christ animated the disciples through the ruach, through the breath. Okay, so I utilize this in a very simple way, but very profound ways to shift your state. My module 2, which anyone can come, you don't have to do module 1 of illumination starting this Sunday. I'm getting into the elevations of respiration part 2, but it's also entry level. So if anyone's interested in that, they can tune into that program. And I talk about that. Okay. Cold exposure is another way. So guys, when I was on the plane just recently going to Texas to do a session at a conference and do a workshop, I was using my mask. I don't like the mask. I don't believe the science is all there, but I think that it's important that, that I'm using it and being a law-abiding citizen, especially in flights. But guess what, guys? Like, I used it to train my respiratory system. I used it to train my CO2 tolerance so that when I don't have it on, I train my ability to be at rest because I'm training that ratio of O2 and CO2 through breath in the blood. So therefore, I can use these things and I can use them to my advantage. So breath is another thing. And then cold exposure, take a 30-second cold shower, focus on your breath, have a clean bill of health from your doctor. I just have to say that as an instructor. But use your breath and really get into a calm space when you're in an adverse situation, which a lot of people consider cold water an adverse situation. It is a hormetic stress, a eustress, which means it's a stress that is positive in small amounts that you can reap tremendous advantage. You can reap a tremendous advantage from. And we see that cold exposure strengthens immunity tremendously. It strengthens clarity of mind, releases happy hormones, endorphins into the body. It decreases inflammation, which most people on this and most people in life are highly inflamed. You wake up in that state a lot of times, okay, due to the environment we live in, the food we eat, and so on and so forth. I get in on how to master that in different arenas, but I'm still on the journey myself. But there's an authority there. I don't teach people these things just teaching them. I've went to the edge and back again in some of it. So these are all great tactics and modalities you can use to step into a deeper, more immersive relational connection with God and a deeper connection with your spirit, soul, and body. All systems go, all systems operational. That's what I'm going for. Every time I have a conversation about this, it holds me to greater account to make sure I maximize these spaces. And man, I'm on this journey, guys. And again, it's not where you're at on the journey, but the fact that you're on the journey, that's important. And that's another one from Ian. So we want to maximize this space. That's one of the ways, or two of the ways I do it. Tune into illumination. It's right now. It's in the link in this. If you want to go deeper with me on that.
Yeah. So the link's down there, guys. It's also in the caption of the broadcast, and you can check that out. More information when you click that link. And we definitely have to do an episode 2. What I love about Arun, and this is the thing, is there are many people that just teach a subject, but then there are a few messengers who are the message, and he is the message. It's not something that he just shares. It's something he lives by, and there's a different element of authority in that. Just as we start wrapping up this episode, Arun, I would love it if you could share maybe 1 or 2 results or transformation results or stories, maybe even of yours or someone else's, of a shift that has happened through some of these things.
Yeah, man. From the most practical, functional, and wellness to the most mystical, I have tons. And there's also reviews on the Union Flow Facebook page for more. My wife edited some of those videos, put some of those testimonies together. But man, from people who needed 8 to 12 hours of sleep, some results down to 3 to 6 hours. From people who wanted to dream more vividly, have a lucid experiences, mystically speaking, out-of-body experiences, accessed it for the first time through some of the things I'm doing. For people who had respiratory issues, things in the lungs, accessed their ability to breathe in a different, more comprehensive way that contributed to their parasympathetic nervous system being stimulated more, meaning their ability to rest. I talk a lot about the physiological seat of rest. And so the seat of rest etched out in your physiology. So a lot of results from that, people just being more stable in the ability to rest and access the space of rest and therefore interact in that multidimensional arena much more fluidly. We have people who have been having both practical, just easy, or just whatever normal, to supernatural weight loss through understanding respiration. One of the things people don't understand about respiration is the out breath. There's actually adipose tissue. There's actually a way you breathe out a lot of fat loss. Okay, so it's kind of interesting. But again, it's people are just experiencing focus like they've never experienced focus before. People are able to focus, and then people are able to let go. Okay, so we have a lot of results from that. People needing to eat far less. People who are enjoying food for the first time, enjoying sleep. Okay, that's another thing. So taking the autopilot and becoming more conscious in life has resulted in tremendous change. And when you can become conscious with something, interact with it, it changes the subconscious process so that you're just more naturally living an ascended life. So across the board, man, I get messages almost all the time regarding, messages about, hey, listen, like 10 to 12 hours was literally what I needed to feel good. I'm at 6. I'm at 3. I've eaten 1 meal a day. Some people haven't needed to eat. It's a choice. It's an option. Okay. I want to plug the authority on the earth, I believe, publicly in this, Kirby and Fiona de Lanerol, in terms of the fasted life. I think that they are awesome and comrades and colleagues and mentors of mine in this space. Sleep optimization is something that I've really cultivated a lot in, and that's what we see a lot of tremendous benefits in. This next thing I'm going to be getting into respiration. Again, I'm going to get into regenerative attitudes. People who have changed their mindsets, their attitudes, have seen a lot of tremendous change in energy levels. So understanding the scriptures in that context. Yeah, man. Yeah, good stuff.
That's awesome. And there you go, guys. So many results, so much transformation. You can obviously connect with Arun on Facebook. You can also check out his Union Flow page on Facebook. The link is on here to check out the next event that he's doing. And it does look like we will need a second episode to go a bit deeper. And so just as we wrap this thing up, I usually get our guests to share a wisdom bomb or a one-liner or a quote that is very specific to their current season. So what would that be for you?
Man, wow. We cannot truly transcend unless we understand connection. Yep. Wow. Yeah, connection and transcendence are integral. So we often look at focusing on transcendence, but we haven't truly connected spirit, soul, and body or understood the dynamics therein. And then even with nature, how do we transcend and subdue or the ecology of the earth if we don't quite understand how it functions and our connection to it? So we cannot truly transcend unless we understand connection.
Wow. There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know, judging by the comments, you guys really loved it. Once again, I just want to honor you, Arun, for what you're doing, for being a pioneer, a forerunner in some of this stuff, and breaking open a realm for people to just crack behind you for a while, you know? So thank you so much, and thank you for your time for being here with us. Yeah, thank you, Joseph. I honor you. We're very like-minded and like-bodied, so to speak. I know this whole message is something that you're also pioneering, and so I honor you and your journey and what you're building, and it's a tremendous opportunity and privilege to be on this platform and to contribute value with you. Man, thank you. Well, there you go, guys. Hope you have an awesome day, awesome evening, night, morning, wherever you are. We love you lots, and take care. Till next time.
Faith and patience. Faith and patience. Patience means allow it to happen. Stay the same. Stay persistent. Keep going. Faith, know that it can happen at any moment. Get excited because it can happen at any moment. You were so close. Don't quit now. Keep pushing. You got this.